do a presentation with regards to our class gift. And as you know, this year we are giving money to a scholarship fund that was set up in memory of Bill Pomeroy, who was in our class. And nobody in our class knows Bill Pomeroy better than John Weatherall. So I'm going to have John come up, say a few words about Bill, and then we're going to present a check to Bill's brothers. Raise their hand. There they are. And then we'll just go from there. So, John?
So I'm going to take a point of personal privilege right now and just talk about some things I knew about Bill and want to convey. And Bill and I were longtime friends and met him in 1966 when his parents moved here to Des Moines. And we stayed in touch over the years and went Boundary Waters canoeing, went RAGBRAI, and later on visited each other. We lived not even geographically close. Bill always lived in Florida. But we'd see each other and had other chances to see him too when he was here, and he faithfully came to every class reunion that I can remember. And he didn't graduate from Roosevelt. I don't even know if he ever went to a reunion at the high school that he actually graduated from. Got to see him a lot the last 10 years. After Bill's divorce was final, he began hosting these epic music parties at his home down in Florida. And these were not, these were pretty elaborate events. Bill knew a lot of musicians, professionally in the Sarasota, Bradenton area. And these were not bathrobe productions. These were well designed, rehearsed type things, and it was just wonderful, And over the years, we stayed in contact, and it seemed like when we'd see each other again after 4 or 5 years, we just resumed, the conversation where we left off. And knowing Bill, of course, he tried to dominate the conversation. Well, anyway, I do want to tell you that Bill was important to me, and this class was very important to Bill. And, if he was here tonight, he'd tell us that. And the other thing I wanted to comment and bring up about Bill is that he had a ginormous group of very close friends. And it's pretty amazing, when I go down to Florida, I met people from his high school class, from his college class, from his law school class, from the legal and music community in Sarasota. And I think the testament on why he had so many friends is not simply because he had history with them, because that's basically, friendship, you have some common history with somebody, but what really prolongs friendships is common interests. And Bill, of course, had the energy to keep engaging with friends, but he had a lot of interests. I think like creative writing and legal writing and music and beer drinking. No, that's a hobby. Long distance bicycling, extreme kayaking, and some other things that probably I can't recall. But that was kind of his trick in accumulating just a great number of personal friends. And I think Larry told me that he probably had more close friends than, for instance, I ever even had acquaintances. So he was a special person. And so anyway, I'd like to call up a couple special guests that are connected with the class gift. And they're Bill's brothers. And so Larry and Jeff, if you can approach the front. Okay, well, anyway, I'll introduce, on my right is Jeff Pomeroy, class of 1976 in Revere, or is it Reefer High School? Revere High School? And Larry Pomeroy's on my left, and he's a class of 1971 at Roosevelt High School. So I know that you've got just a few things to say, but I'd like you to please take the non-negotiable, very large check that
Thank you.
So, here we go, gentlemen. It's your turn.
He didn't make that much in a month.
Well, not legally.
You know,
Yes, thank
Bill's
you, John.
longest friend from
One of
5th
many.
grade, Merrill.
One of the finest. Yeah.
Anyway, when Laura told us that you guys had decided, the youth reunion committee had decided to make this the focus of your class gifts, it just did more than you can possibly imagine for Jeff and me and our family. And you know, we're all at that age now. We've all lost parents and some of us siblings, and we're now very familiar with the whole process of grieving people that we love and miss. And that message from Laura and from you all, from this class that he loved, was one of those rays of bright light that penetrated that dark grief and creates that sense of gratitude for, of course, for him, but for everybody that he touched and left behind who loved him. And it means more than you can possibly imagine, so thank you all. As his older brother, I do have a few comments. Semester, and that dreaded catch-all of teacher overreach, classroom misconduct. And in fact, when we were thinking about, you know, what would be a meaningful contribution to Roosevelt in his memory, the close runner-up was the Pomeroy Memorial Waiting Bench in the administration office. But I think somebody already taken that. And how about the first time when you were walking down the hallways proudly leaving this eye-watering vapor trail of, if you were a guy, you doused yourself with either Jade East or English leather, or if you were really up there, canoe. And I don't know what the counterpart was for the girls.
I'm still using it.
You still, it never goes out of style. And not that they were related, but how about that first memorable makeout session when you somehow awkwardly but gloriously and consensually slid past first base. And
He didn't play baseball.
and how about the soundtrack to our youth when we grew up? Was that the first time you were hearing the strains of Purple Haze, Green River, or White Room, or The Wait? And this inevitably led to your first, and in our case last, garage band of the year, made possible by a spectacular lapse of parental judgment at the 1969 Iowa State Fair, when they agreed to finance Bill's red Stratocaster guitar and my blue metallic Sparkle Sonar drum set, which I still have, by the way. I've had it for years. And there's actual archival home footage, movie footage, blessedly devoid of sound, showing Bill, you know, plinking out the lead of Pipeline on the rare occasion when his guitar wasn't being usurped by another founding member. Some of you may remember Harlan Green, that you know, poster child for every parent's definition of a bad influence, and the dean of Des Moines delinquency. Speaking of which, how about your first sloppily rolled strawberry paper joint from a 3-finger lid of supplied willingly by the Gallo Brothers cartel. Some of you remember them. Generously sprinkled with stems and seeds, so that as soon as you lit it, which was often while you were driving, There was a spectacular explosion of ash and embers. Into your, that's where Lebowski got it in the movie. And having to go home, and your first explanation for this little round burn mark in your favorite shirt, which was
Or
also
your mom's favorite shirt.
an occasion to tell your mom that it was caused by an errant flying ember at the campsite,
Which is why you smell like
which
smoke.
had a kernel of plausible truth to it, and hence became one of those often leaned on little white lies. Okay, so, and then finally, this is all good, Bill would want this to be known. Those first heart palpitations when you would buy beer on a fake ID, and you would come up to the counter, and it'd be like a couple Batman comics, and chiclets, some ho-hos, and these 3 6-packs of Green Belt. And anyway, I never did that, but Bill did, and he got away with it. And is it any wonder that, with all those memories, and you guys have them, you're thinking about them right now, different ones that you had at that same time, that we call Des Moines affectionately the hub of the universe. And at the hub of the universe, in this miasma of wonderful social, cultural happenings at the time we grew up in here, fantastic, was the true throbbing heart of it, and that was the trestle down by.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, who agrees with the trestle? Okay, and those twin hulking behemoths, sphinx-like figures of rusting iron that were down there for all those years. And they had those rivets going down like their forearms that were the point of purchase if you were brave or wasted enough to try and climb it. And anyway, it was that sacred nexus of those 3 adolescent byways of Walnut Creek and the tracks and the river. And it was the site where untold 6-packs of worn grain belt were consumed and through one orifice or another quickly returned to the earth. And speaking of which, last summer we held an informal gathering down at the Trestle to remember Bill.
All right.
And in true keeping with what we also ask ourselves, what would Bill want? We had an ancient rusted grain belt can that had actually been retrieved from the campsite decades earlier and lovingly preserved. And we had some of Bill's ashes in that can, and we went to the side of the creek over the trestle and gave him one last dip in those sacred swirling waters. He read an excerpt from one of the manuscripts that was unearthed in his extensive trove of writings. And Jeff is going to do the honors with this, but it's an exquisite cocktail of prose that those of you who knew Bill and his writings, the blend of Kerouac and Whitman and Vonnegut with a dose of Mad Magazine. And so what better way to remember Bill than some of his own words? So sit back and just enjoy this virtual reality analog creation of his ode to boyhood freedoms and joys called the Trestle Mythos Rising.
First thing I'd like to do is thank Laura and the committee again for the opportunity just to visit with you and share some memories. And the unbelievable generosity of this class is just stunning and it's on. I'll try to do this honor. I parked by the bridge that crosses the big river and was drawn as I knew I must be, trestleward once again. I could feel the site thrumming with power as I approached and climbed the gravel bank. The rich, rhythmic oscillations of the ancient energy harmonized with the clear, ringing tones of the multiple visits and rituals to create a sun-ignited plasma in which the echo spirits of prior vibrations were palpably manifest. As I walked the tracks toward the bridge, I could feel the echoes of the young spirits that had been compelled by the confluence of iron, stone, water, and solitude to gather together there, lo, those many years ago, to learn the ancient knowledge. It is the echoes of these formative ritualistic gatherings that imbue the site with its oldest and deepest power. And the iron skeleton of the trestle still hums as the focal point of a memory collective, carried by and now aged and aging sons of Walnut Creek. I stood in the hot Iowa sun and listened to the old voices overlaid by the quiet gurgle of the creek and the cries of the kingfisher, and once again let the essence of the place wash over and through me. I dropped over the concrete edge, lowered myself down onto the ledge 5 feet below. As I crouched by the metal base, I could feel its heat and smell the creosote, iron, sweat, and diesel smoke memory that are the incense of the bridge. Afterward, I walked up the path toward Greenwood Park, peeling off at the tracks and walking them west. I found the site positively abuzz with energies old and new, and was again lifted gently on the time current. Thank you for the magic, my brothers.
So join us with Bill, Jeff, and me to the incredible privilege of growing up at that time in this wonderful town, to the trestle, the river, Greenwood Park, all of those places that welcomed our youthful exuberances, to those treasured memories at Roosevelt, even the jagged edges now over the decades burnished into a soft, warm patina. And most of all, to you, to this beautiful, generous, loving class of 1973. Cheers.
Cheers.
Woo-hoo!